right, so now we're gonna go into the 13. So hopefully, like, I'm making some type of sense. Hopefully, it's coherent. But if not, I'm gonna go through these over again in more detail. So I'm not really too worried about it. Right now, it's just getting the talking out. So obviously, the world revolves a certain way, and there's a certain cycle, right? And that cycle is the time continuum that we're in, where it goes from spring, summer, fall, winter, then it repeats, right? It goes from one, two, three, and it keeps going, right? It goes from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., right? Like there's a cyclical time. That cyclical time, every hour should be dedicated to something. Every part of the day should be dedicated to something, right? Every day in the month should be dedicated to something based on the astrological sign, based on what planets are there. Every season should be dedicated depending on where the signs are and the days are and everything, right? Now it's not like a religious thing to where okay, this day means this day means that, this day means that. Eventually it will get there. Eventually it will. That's not what I'm talking about right now. What I'm talking about is natural understanding. Like, okay, we're in springtime. It's Aries season. Aries is the start of something new. It's the spring, the beginning of spring. What's something new that I can start, or what's something new that I need to start? You see what I'm saying? So once you're doing that for a few years, or however long it needs for it to sink in, to where it's like, okay, I understand like exactly what he's talking about, and you're getting your own experiences, and you're understanding astrology on your own way. Then we talk about the 13th, which is a fucus, which is right in between Scorpio and Sagittarius. So Scorpio is a symbol for rebirth and death, right? Sagittarius is uh, two natures. It's the two natures, the higher and the lower, right? So in a lot of different ways, if you connect Scorpio and you connect Sagittarius, you'll get you'll get a strange mix because one's about death and rebirth and one's about two natures, higher and lower. So death and rebirth, two natures, higher and lower. Like it's telling you something, which is why a fucus is was placed right there. And what is a fucus? A fucus is the I forgot exactly what they call him. I think they call him the snake bearer because he's holding the snake, and the snake is a lot of different myths behind the snake, but the snake is basically renewal, right? But the snake can also be dangerous as well. But the snake also represents knowledge and wisdom. You see what I'm saying? But just like the snake sheds its skin, so does knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Like what you know now eventually will become obsolete because it's no longer useful at the level that you're at because now you're gaining a little bit more information, so now you have more knowledge. So same principles. These are the same principles that keep going back and back and back and back. As above, so below. It's continuous. And as above, so below doesn't mean up and down. It means left and right. It means forward and backward. It means a lot of things. Like that's why I keep always referring back to it. Like there's other principles and axioms, but this one is very important because it's the key to a lot of things. All right, so in between Scorpio and in between Sagittarius, there's like a maybe 15 or 20 day gap where you have a fucus there, and it's like really short. It doesn't get the full 30. It's like a small little gap, right? Well, on your map, when you have your planets in one ring, and inside that ring you have another circle, and you have your zodiac signs, and then you go off to the side and you put the 13th sign in between Sagittarius and Sagittarius and Scorpio. That time, which is the end of November, and it's like the last week of November. It's like the last 2 weeks of November and the first 1 week of December. Like in that time period, that's a portal, right? And that portal is for you to slip through, right? And instead of going when you slip through the portal, instead of going to Sagittarius, then Capricorn, then Aquarius, you'll go the opposite way, and you'll go into um, Scorpio, then you go into Libra, then you go into Virgo, and you'll go around backwards. So usually you'll go forward. You'll go forward in the zodiacal sign, right? But in the labors of Hercules, which is about astrology, and the labors of Hercules, I think it's written by Greeks, obviously, probably most likely, but or maybe it wasn't, who knows. But in the labors of Hercules, he pretty much goes on these different labors that the gods put him on, and each time he passes a test, he gets awarded something like a shield or a cloth or something to help him on his journey, right? So eventually he gets to a point to where he's on his last trial, but he puts down all the items that the gods gave him to help him, and he tries to fight it with his own might. Now, I know as a Christian we're gonna thinking, oh, like this is Satan, Satan, Satan. Like that's all. If you're like a heavy Christian, you're brainwashed. That's what you're gonna hear, and I don't mean to sound like that, but like that's just what it is, right? But it's not that. Like that's not what it's talking about. It's talking about you being able to conquer yourself to the degree to where when you do get your mental powers, you're able to give them away, right? You're able to put them to the side and just use who you are as your being. Not use your mind's powers, but your being. Because as we're going through this Earth game, we're using our mental powers, and we're learning how to use our being. That's ultimately the goal: learning how to use our being to supersede mind. Because mind is just another body. We don't want another body. We don't want another dense body. We want a light body. So we want to go into our solar body. We don't want to go into our mental body. We want to go into our solar body, and then eventually get into our spiritual body, or our body of spirit, should I say? So there'll become a point in time when you're taking your test to where you can rely on your mental powers and your mental prowess to get you through situations, but it's always better to take the test just based on the merit of who you are, based on the merit of what you've done. Like, for instance, let's say people are accusing you of doing something that you didn't do, right? You could fight it, right? And be like, I didn't do this because this and this and this, and use all your power that you have to be like, hey, this is why I didn't do it. Or you could be like, you know what? I'm gonna let you think whatever you're gonna think. I'm gonna let you do whatever you're gonna do. And on a lot of different wavelengths, this is one of the hardest things to do, because at that point we're truly practicing selflessness, because we know that these accusations can hurt us. We know that, but we're willing to go through that because we know ultimately we didn't do anything wrong, and we know that. So it's one of those first pure acts of selflessness that we'll probably ever do in our lives, right? And we have to practice that selflessness, because it's gonna come in handy when you start getting into the higher realms, and your mental power start becoming even more powerful, and you're able to manipulate people that are brainwashed because they don't know any better. They're zombies. They're NPCs. They're they're just ready to be agents type shit. So you'll be able to control them when you start getting to a certain level. So, but if you practice the selflessness as much as you can, then you'll be able to control your lower nature when you start getting those mental powers to not control these people. You see what I'm saying? Instead of controlling them, you'll teach them how to fish. You see what I'm saying? And you pretty much like teach them the game, but on their level. And you use your mental powers for that, instead of using your mental powers to control and dominate like they're doing now. Like, that's why all these people are in power. They're in power because they have esoteric knowledge and they use it almost all the time. What do you think marketing is? It's magic. Like, they're doing this to us all the time. And like with the technology they have now, I wouldn't be surprised if they're sending out subsonic frequencies and vibrations to us physically, which is all the more reason why astrology helps you organize your mind to understand different frequencies. Because when you start getting into the astrology, you'll start catching on to frequencies, and you'll start seeing people act differently. Like in the times of Mercury retrograde, like things do get weird, and you'll start to think, is it getting weird because I know it's Mercury retrograde, so I have explanation for this, or has it always been like this? And to be honest, it's really hard to tell, because how could you know? You see what I'm saying? Which goes into the illusion and reality, and what reality is. Which eventually I start getting into reality and what reality is. But so usually in the zodiac sign you'll go forward, but once you get to a fucus and you're ready for it, you'll go backwards. Now that doesn't necessarily mean like, okay, this month, okay, it's Sagittarius, but I'm pretending like it's Scorpio. That's not really what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that now you've got to the point to where you're aware of what the seasons are doing to you. You're aware of what the seasons, how you're interacting with them, and what you need to be doing. So eventually you be like, okay, so now it's so now we're in time of Sagittarius. So the opposite of Sagittarius. Let me look at my map. Where is Sagittarius? Sagittarius on inside. Where opposite of Sagittarius is Gemini. All right. So whatever Gemini is, that's whatever Gemini is, whatever that meaning is to you, that's the principles that you'll hold into Sagittarius. So Sagittarius for me is the philosopher. Gemini to me is the portal. So the philosopher, which is the one that walks into heaven, right? The one that walks into heaven goes through the portal. So when I go through the portal, I come out on the other side. So now that I come out on the other side, now I go through the portal. So I go through the portal. When I go through the portal, I get into Cancer. Cancer for me is the waters. So I go through the portal into the waters, and then I go through the birth of royalty. I go through the alchemist. I go through the opening of space. I go through the phoenix until I'm back at Sagittarius, right? And all this isn't happening, like I'm not recording all of this. Oh, I do this and I do it. No, all of this is happening naturally. So then next month is Capricorn. Opposite of Capricorn is birth of royalty. So when I went through the portal and I went through the birth of royalty the first time, I'm just gonna pick up that energy and go through it again. And then when I get to Aquarius, then I pick up the energy of the opposite of Aquarius, which is Leo. Then I pick up that energy. Then I keep going, and I keep going. Now, I've never successfully gone through a fucus the whole way. Like I've never actually went through a fucus. And the only reason why I'm telling you is that because I haven't doesn't mean you can't. You see what I'm saying? But I haven't personally, because there's something I'm waiting on, and I don't really know what I'm waiting on. But for some reason, I feel like I need to wait on it, because when I go through a fucus, I'm gonna try to go through fucus through the astral realm. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not like that. That's more stuff I want to get into, like when we start traveling. Like, but this is just the basic knowledge to like get me to the point, get us all on the same page. So when I start talking about the things I want to talk about, you'll have like a reference point of what I'm saying. So I just want to get into the 13th sign, just because it's very important, and because another thing about that, I'm gonna get into like numbers and stuff too, but on our clock we have the 12 hour, the 24-hour day, right? Which most civilians use the 12-hour clock, so 12 a.m., 12 p.m., right? Well, 1 through 12, right, is a continuous stream, and it keeps going over and over. Once you get to 13 steps outside of 12. Then you have 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, right? If you think about it, 1 through 12 is one circle. Once you hit 13, it steps outside of the clock, and then it's another circle. So 1 through 12 is the basic understanding that we all have in Western society now. 13 and up is the new consciousness. So think of it like this. 1 and 2 equal 3, which is 12. So 12 is 3, right? So when you get to 3, 1, 2, 3, that's the first time you get to 3. So 3 is the first degree of 3. So the next time you get to 3 is until 12. So 2 and 3. Now 12 is the second degree of 3. The next time you get to 3 is 21. No, wait. 70. Yeah, I think it's 21. Wait, let me just double check. 10. 8, yeah, okay, yeah. 21. So 21, 2 and 3. So that's the third degree of 3. Then you get to 3 again when you get to 30. That's a fourth degree of 3. You see what I'm saying? So at 30, you're at the fourth degree of 3. So when you're 30 years old, what happens in the fourth degree of 30? Saturn returns. Saturn returns around 27 to 30. See what I'm saying? So in the fourth degree of 3, something new happens. You start a new point in your life. Same thing with 3. After the number 3, you get a whole new set of numbers now. Because 1, 2, 3 start all numbers. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are the children of 1, 2, 3. Like play with numbers and you'll see what I'm talking about. But when you get to 12, 12 signifies something. Because 12 is 2 and 3, which is 1, 2, and 3. It's the parents. When you get to 12, you hit the parents again. But it's just a higher octave of the parents now. Then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are the children. Well, what's 13? If 3 is the parents, if 1, 2, and 3 are the parents, and 12 is the parent, what 13 is 4. So 3 and 4. So now you're in one octave at 3. At 12 you're in the second octave. So when you're in the second octave, you go into 13, which is 4. Now you're in a plane. You hit an octave, but now you've decided how do I explain this? When I get into numbers, I'll explain it then. But I guess this is like a little precursor.